Hello, 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 you guys, and welcome back to another inspiring yet profound episode of Dear Black Woman, a podcast featuring Black women from different countries with global perspectives on everything dealing with Black women. I am Cammie Red here with my co-host, Nicole Davis, and today's birthday girl, Lauren Edwards. Yep, today is Lauren's birthday, you guys. So make sure you drop it in the comments. Happy birthday to Lauren. All right, today we are diving into a topic that is at the heart of everything we do: the role of community. In this episode, we're going to explore how community shapes our lives, fosters support, and creates opportunity for growth, from addressing mental health within the Black communities to discussing how Black women can uplift Black men. We'll look at all of the collective strength it takes to overcome challenges, celebrate our heritage. It's a conversation about connection, advocacy, and how community can transform lives. So let's get into it and take a moment to also celebrate Lauren's special day along the way. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Is it me you're looking for?
Happy birthday. How old did you turn? 26?
Oh, yeah. I'm taking it. 26.
Yes.
More like flip it around. 62. 62.
Okay. Listen, no, Lauren, you and I both have grown kids and we look the same age as our kids. So we're great.
Thank you, Cammie. It's just
I don't know
about what's going on.
Listen, I don't know about your daughter, but my son hates it when people say we look very close in age and we look like siblings instead of
embarrass her all the time, but I don't care. That's why I had my daughter, so I could embarrass her. It's quite the rite of passage, isn't it?
Yeah, but Nicole isn't here. She'll actually be joining in a little later, so we look forward to that. But Lauren, we're going to be talking about community today and some things that have occurred in your life as well as in the lives of others that actually sparked. Not just, we already had this conversation planned, but we had to take a look at how we were going to address some things. So I'm going to open up the floor with my first question as always, even though it's just me and you. But what does community mean to you? And how has it influenced your approach to supporting others, particularly within the Black community?
I think community is, like, to me, a group of people that just come together without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever community you belong to, I think it's just that thing of just where you're not judged. That's where you feel safe. And I would say I'm part of many different communities, as well as obviously one or two, but I'd say it's where you feel safe within your space. Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. But on a broader scale, when we say community, a lot of times what I think about is, our culture, us as Black people. What role do we play within our own community as a Black woman or as a Black man? And, in these times of just uncertainty, all over the world. I know a lot of people think about the United States on the global level, but I don't really necessarily just think about the United States. I think about all over the world.
Yeah, and I would say, there's so many different things that are happening in our community, and all happening all at once.
Yeah.
And it's as a result of a massive buildup of trauma and things that we've been through over decades. This is not something that's just sort of popped up. And one of those is mental health, all the stigmas. And we've been talking about stigmas from the very beginning of this podcast. So it's been building up for generations and generations. And I think social media and what's happening with new technology and stuff has brought it to its head, if you know what I mean, which is then
Absolutely, absolutely, in a negative and in a positive way. So
exactly
you get to see all of the things that are wrong, and that can cause social anxiety, that can cause re-traumatizing yourself. But the beautiful part about what, and I'm always when it comes to social media on this podcast. I watched back a couple of our episodes and found that I blame social media for a lot of stuff. But this time I'm going to give social media a break and say some of the pros that I'm starting to see is an uptake on, mental wellness, mental health,
yes, yes,
especially, in the Black community, addressing how we need to address our mental health, how we need to deal with it, how we can no longer hide behind those
no.
masks or the things that we are utilizing to not pay attention to what's really going on around us. So,
And I think, like you said, I think we, especially within men, like men and boys and males, they don't tend to open up often, if not at all. So I think there's a massive role that we as women do need to play, where we create safe spaces for men to be able to open up. I think it's important that other men, I think Leonard said it on one of our other shows, it's important for men to create spaces, safe spaces, and stop stigmatizing, or
oh
like
yeah,
peers and stuff to have to be a certain way, because I think we will just continue this snowball
it's
effect.
a cycle. Yeah,
And if we don't, start addressing it, then we really will lose control of it. But like you said, I think um we are starting to become more aware, which is
mhm,
always good. You can't hide it. And one of the things that I've done within my community is help set up something called Man Cave. And we recognize that everything we do in the community tends to be around like mums or women, or like
yeah.
coffee mornings or whatever, and it's always women that turn up to these things, sorry. But so we said we need to do something for men, but we understood as soon as we had kind of marketed it as a men's mental well-being cafe
That
or
men were
social,
not going to participate.
they didn't turn up. There was no one. There was zero. There was no one. And you could register for this online or, like indirectly. Nothing. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, right, what can we do to change the language? What kind of things do men and males like to do, or will come into a space? So we changed it to like a poker night. We changed it to like boxing, football, sports going to be on, just things. And actually, the uptake, especially for poker night, was just very, very different. Like, signing up. And then what we found is when they're in the door,
you can
they
you can establish and set up those
build
conversations.
those relationships.
Yeah. So let me tell you something funny. And you may know this because I posted it on social media. We just came out with a Dear Black Woman coloring book, right?
Mhm.
So everything that has been geared around this brand has been geared around Black women.
Yes.
Well, the other night when I got my coloring book and I was showing it to everybody and I was saying, "Oh my, look at this coloring book, look at this, look at that." Guess what I got? Two
What?
requests from men, two different men who asked me could they purchase a coloring book for me, not for their daughters or for them or for
Yeah.
anyone else, but for themselves. So it inspired me to the point that yes, this book had been on the back burner, and I was going to initially do a Dear Black Man, Love from a Black Woman type of book.
Yeah.
I started on it the other night because I realized that not only in those requests, but also in my dealings with my son, in some of the news that's been out, in talking to some of my male friends, discussing things with them, I realize how traumatized and how, emotionally stagnant men have become when it comes to their emotional and mental wellness. I watch my father suffer with anxiety every day, and he chooses not to go to therapy, but to deal with it in other ways. So we have to, and I feel like it's a huge responsibility. And I know there are going to be a lot of Black women that say, oh, that goes against what you guys have said before about carrying everybody on your back and not being the nurturer. But we have roles in our community. We have
and you
roles.
don't have to always pick that or that, or that. This is the thing that we do. It's quite divisive, isn't it? Because it kind of is like, well, you're either going to say that or you're going to say that. You're going to do that or you're going to be like that. And I think we touched on it in regards to religion, and and if there's a higher being, you can have different points of view.
Here's the thing. Two things can be right at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So no, we don't need to carry the world on our back. No, we don't need to be out here trying to save everyone. But we do need to set up opportunities and outlets for our male children, our male friends, our male family members who we see are suffering. And I'm going to just go a step further and say it's my responsibility as a boy mom to make sure that my son is taken care of mentally, emotionally, and everything.
Listen,
so
whether it's your son, whether it's your cousin, whether it's your uncle, whether it's your nephew, you have to understand that they're just like men have got a responsibility for certain things when it comes to Black women, Black girls, Black children. Women have got a role to play.
Yeah,
we have got a role to play, and I think it's we are so quick within the Black community, especially because we're quite, I wouldn't say quite hard, but stop crying, don't cry.
I'm gonna go back to some stuff that we've touched on before.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this comes from colonization. I think the way we handle our emotions, I think the way we teach our kids to be it's all trauma, generational behaviors, and it all stems from colonization. Because here's the thing, when we were slaves, we couldn't show emotion.
No.
Your children couldn't cry. They had to get out there and work the field just like you did.
And the consequence of those emotions, and as a boy, a man, male, the consequence of those emotions must have been petrifying.
Yeah. So, can you imagine a little boy crying and you telling him, hey, you can't cry, and if you cry, the master's gonna whip you? So again, when I say this to you, when I talk about my trauma docuseries, and I tell people that trauma is passed down 7 generations, which means that the trauma that our ancestors inherited or carried, we also carry, because those same behaviors our grandparents are just now learning that they are wrong. My grandmother's 95 years old. She's changed her whole perspective on parenting and raising kids in those 95 years. What she did with her children, she didn't allow us to do with our children because she said it wasn't right. So she learned. She had to relearn what she had already learned in her life.
I think we have the opportunity with social media and technology to change things quite quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly, because you've got to remember the audience was never that wide if you look at previous generations.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like when it comes to community doesn't necessarily mean your physical community. No. Community can also mean your virtual community. The community that, like for us, our community isn't just the people that's around us. Lauren, you're in London. Nicole is in Paris. You're a part of my community.
Exactly. Yeah. And anybody who engages with us then becomes part of our community.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying, we are at an advantage where it's, you got to remember anything you say or do can be quite detrimental and quite disruptive, but it can be quite positive and it can be quite healing. So you've got to be always looking at how we can get this done quickly, just because we have got, I would say, a real issue with males and their mental health and their mental state. So we really have to get that word out. And you got to remember as well, if we just go back and just remove it from just being a male part, there's so many people that are isolated because of the internet as well. So yes, they might feel part of something because they're behind the screen or whatever it is, but in reality, one thing we can say we had growing up was interaction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me say this, the interaction, whether positive or negative, as a black community has always been a key point in our culture. Even in the Caribbeans, where your ancestors are from, you all get together for festivals, get together for carnivals, get together for different things. We do that here in the United States as well. We have festivals, we have carnivals, we have physical.
Well, it was part of our whole being, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like when black families have a party, a christening, a wedding, it goes down.
It goes down.
It goes down. Yeah. And like you said, like you said, even some of the things, like you guys have cookouts and we have barbecues and this and that and whatever. But it's
community. Yeah.
It's slowly dissolving.
But see, also here in America, one of the reasons, and I think, like I tell people, stay out the media, stop watching the news, stop watching TV, because it feeds a lot into your anxieties and it takes away a lot of what
I don't watch it.
Yeah, what we are used to doing, it puts a lot of fear into that. So, for instance, where we used to go to the park and have a cookout and do this and do that, the news is, and I'm going to say it's pretty much their job to isolate you. That is what they've done. They will isolate you so that you stay home and you feel like, oh my God, if I go to the park, I'm going to get shot and killed. Yeah, something bad is going to happen.
And the thing is, these things have been happening for centuries. However, we have more access to it, and with access, it's fear, and with fear, it stops people from doing things. So even during like the pandemic, and it was like, we was told, you're not allowed to go here, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do. I was like, no, you're not going to take away.
Like, come on now. What it did was it fed into people's fears for being social, for being part of a physical community. And that became the thing that we relied on heavily. So now you hear people still talking about COVID, and that instantly invokes fear into some people's
minds. If I cough, I've got a really bad cough at the moment. If I cough, you should see how people.
Don't listen. I went out to eat with my older brother probably a couple of weeks ago, when I was telling him that I was moving to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the restaurant and my throat got dry. Not because I had a cold, but you know how you have moments where your throat might get dry.
Yeah. Normally when I haven't had an alcoholic beverage, yes.
So I reached for my water, and it takes a minute for it to do all. So I coughed. I said, I covered my mouth, but do you know how many people turned around when I coughed?
Literally, I'm surprised they didn't wrestle you to the ground and wrap something around your face.
But that's fear and that stigma that's keeping us away from building communities with others. Yes. My business partner talked to me about him walking through the airport from California to Texas, and he was saying, Cammie, he said the crazy part is these people are still wearing masks, even though they've been told that the masks actually are more harmful than not wearing the mask. He said, so it doesn't
matter.
People are going to feed on their fears regardless. And
I always have this image of like these uber rich Illuminati sort of type of people having cameras watching us all laughing their asses off.
Yeah.
Like we're just doing whatever they like
Like
I've
you
just,
research subjects or something. Yeah.
you know what, have you seen that film Rat Race? Is it Rat Race?
Yes. Not just that one. There's another one. What's his name? Jim Carrey played in a long time ago, and I can't remember the name of it. Where he was this guy, and this entire world was built around him, and he was the only one that didn't know that this world was fake, and that beyond the water, beyond that, it was all just a set. He was raised in this world. Everything was.
That's what I feel like. This
Yeah.
is what I'm saying to you. And there's some people just there laughing their asses. Let's see if we can invent something, and let's see what assholes are going to really suck this up now this week.
Yeah. And that's exactly what they do. Like, even with, okay, so I'm going to go as far as saying, even with our political races and what just recently happened in the United States, okay, everything that Trump ran on was fear-based, okay? So what he knew is that people react to their fears more so than they think logically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Logic? Oh, no, don't do that. And thinking for themselves, oh, don't do that neither. This is what I'm saying. This is what we've become.
Yeah. So let's talk about how all of these fears and all of this trauma has led to the dissolution, or what's the word I'm looking for? What does it do? Oh, I'll figure out the word in a few minutes.
You know what? It's funny because I think I know where you're going with it, but I work heavily in the community, and some of the communities I work in are really diverse. And when I mean diverse, I mean you've got kind of I don't know how you'd explain them without, I don't want to like sound racist, but you've got kind of an old-fashioned white English kind of I think over where you live they'd call them maybe like rednecks, right?
Yep.
So you've got like people like that, and where the area is that I work quite a lot in, you have got a lot of Eastern Europeans that have come over, and you've got a lot of maybe Indians. So it's a very mixed culture, but a very fragmented culture.
Yes.
Because people have come into that area, yeah. So they've come in, a majority, maybe you have asylum seekers, you have people coming in, whatever. So it's become a bit of a melting pot. And because I run a lot of community-based training, I get everyone coming from all walks of life. And one thing that was so nice to see is that you would have these kind of redneck white folks that have already made up their mind about the Muslim lady with the hijab. They've already got they've all got it.
Yeah.
In my classrooms, they are all the same, and actually they're all going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And actually it's so nice to hear that some of them were really honest, saying, I didn't like them before, or I didn't like those people coming in and whatever, but now they understand. She goes through what I've been through. She deals with what I have to deal with on a daily basis.
But see, that's the beauty, and that's what I always talk about when I'm on these podcasts. I just did one yesterday where I talked about
your mic, Cammy. I mean, you're doing this on purpose.
Okay, can you hear me now?
So there was just one. There's just one bullet left.
No, but I was saying, I was on a podcast yesterday where I said we have to see beyond our differences. That's, gender roles, race roles, religious roles, all of that. We have to see beyond that and still see the beauty in the human being and in the person. This podcast has taught me so much, because who would have known that 3 women from 3 different countries go through the same things on a daily basis?
Exactly.
You think that you're isolated to your little part of your world, not realizing that it's not just you, it's us everywhere. The other day, I held this big meeting with Black women about the anthology that I'm doing. we had Black women on from Africa. We had Black women on from the Caribbean. We had Black women on from Australia, the Netherlands, different parts of Europe.
Wow.
So, and to hear and to talk to them, not just individually, but collectively, and understand that we are all facing the
The
very
same
same
thing.
issues. It doesn't matter where we are in the world. That's why I said community, it's beyond, where you are in America, where you are in London, where Nicole is in Paris. It's
Yeah.
beyond that at this point. And some of the things that we've been affected with, especially you this week, we have to think about on a global level, because of some of the stuff that you were going through. And I was saying, hey Lauren, I'm noticing an uptake in this. I'm noticing that it's not just, it's everywhere now. And I'm not gonna give your business, but I'm gonna say what I've been researching is the Black male and suicide, and what is causing this uptake in young boys to decide to take their own lives. And it first started, I started to actually realize it when the actress Regina King's son took his life, and we all asked the question, well, why did he do it? And then I started to follow, a couple of stories where I had seen Black males take their own lives in between a certain age group of 25 to about 35. Roy Jones Jr., the boxer, his son did the same thing the day before his birthday. So, it was like, okay, first of all, we're seeing this in a area of people who have resources and the ability to get the help and stuff that they need. So my other my other research went into the areas where people don't have resources and don't have the ability to get the help that they need. Now, let me just be very clear with you on something. There is no research and there is no data out here that has been done by any of the major, the CDC, Harvard Medical, any of these things that deal with that. But from what I've learned and from what I've read and from all of my research, this has been on the rise for the past, I want to say, 5 years. So my question is, what do we do as a community to save our boys? Because
I think that's such a good question. It's and it does start from them being boys, because boys then turn into men, right?
yep,
And then this is
yep,
what's happening. That it carries through. And I think one of the things that I done this week with my son, normally, it's very much, if he does something that he shouldn't or misbehaves, I'm there with my wagging finger, and I'm being very kind of
you're
just that.
being the authoritative parent. Yes.
And I wanted to try something different this week. And I wanted to sit down and I got a pen and paper and I said, you tell me how you feel. You tell me what happened. You tell me, why did you do what you did? And actually, I saw a different child, because he had the opportunity, he had the stage, he had the ability to be able to just express himself without any judgment. And I just listened.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I think, is quite powerful, or I saw that it was quite powerful. And I think it's all very well when we as parents, or mothers, just do that, but I think the wider community has to learn to do that as well. And if you start creating all these avenues for our boys and our men, then it becomes a lot more normal.
Yeah.
So if he could go and speak to his friends about how he's feeling, or go and speak to an uncle, or then go and speak to a professional, or then anywhere he goes, he feels safe to open up and be who he wants to be, then that is how we start to have healthier men, but healthier relationships. Because could you
Yeah.
imagine if we start raising these boys to be emotionally intelligent? then we then create better relationships for future generations, I think.
I absolutely agree with you on that. And we have to take and let me just say this. It's okay for us to come up with the idea and do, put all of this into action, but we also have to think about the fact that we need to allow men to run these spaces as well. We need to allow our male counterparts to be available, but we have to work with them getting healing first and work on them, doing things to better themselves, because a lot of them carry around a lot of toxic ideas, a lot of toxic behaviors, a lot of toxic things that could be detrimental to the development of a younger gentleman or a younger boy. So we've got to work with them on.
Yeah, and I think otherwise you end up with the blind leading the blind.
Exactly.
We've seen many a times where you get men running these groups that are not healed themselves. And when we talk about healing, like, they weren't raised in that situation themselves. So that's why I say there's a lot of work to be done down the line.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much we can really salvage of generations of our age as we can help. And I think we can start to understand, but I think it's definitely going to be for the younger generations coming up. There's a lot of work to do. And I think, as you said before, Cami, we've also got to look at the balance of how much is actually going into our children as a whole. Because I think we said about, the iPads and the technology, we're just like, go on your iPad, go on your technology, go and watch your TV, go and do this, go. So we have time for ourselves. And that's also being replaced by parenting.
I was just going to say, so the dissolving of community is what I was looking for earlier. Yes. It has a lot to do with media, not just social media, but media, period.
Yes.
It's the phones, it's the iPads, it's the TVs, it's all of that. Because now the videos and YouTube are raising our children, but they're also distracting us. Yes. So we spend a lot more time on our phones, on our iPads, on our devices, watching TV, doing all of this, but we don't spend a lot of time creating community. We don't spend a lot of time. Like, it dawned on me that, I don't know too many families that still sit down at the table together and have dinner. And that's really,
I do believe that there's the outer I don't know, I wouldn't say that outer force, but the outside influence has made us not be able to afford to do it anymore, Cami. I had a conversation with one of my male friends, and he said, years ago, the man's salary would run the household. One man's salary could run that household. Does that happen anymore?
It can, but it does not. I've been watching ever since our last episode where we talked about
it. Really? Because in the UK, it definitely can't. Unless you're like, I'm talking about the average, an average worker. Yeah. He's got to run a household of 2-3 children. And that used to be just a standard thing.
I'm going to say this to you. I don't think it's really changed that much. I think what has occurred is this. So standards of living have changed, if you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because my grandmother and my grandfather had 10 children, okay? Yes. And from my understanding, they lived in a 2-bedroom home. They lived, in maybe 3-bedroom home. Yeah. And my grandmother went to school and my grandfather worked. My grandfather gave my grandmother all of his check, and she somehow made it all work. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, for me, I think it's the standards of
course
living.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why I said the outside has created all of these flashy things for us to be involved in. clothes, hair, nails, makeup, technology,
I was going
trainers,
to say technology is a huge one because
everything,
how much did the PS5 cost? It was like $575.
right?
So if that's your form of entertainment, that's what you're spending it on. For women to get their hair done now, I think it can go in excess of $1,500 depending upon what the hairstyle is that you're getting.
Crazy.
Here in the
But
United States,
clothes, they're
yeah,
so the amount of clothes that gets, because they're so cheap and quick and everything's fast. So we now have become just, we don't do the things we used to do because they've been replaced by other things. So when we talk about family functions, a lot of time people are trying to get out of going.
yeah, yeah.
They
I'm
actually have
I'm
got
one watch
social,
this. I'm one of those people.
see what I mean? Social anxiety. And I
And
get it.
you hit the nail right on the head. So I've talked about my struggles before, but one of the things that I've never really talked about on this show is my struggle with social anxiety. And I do have social anxiety, but a lot of people will never see that show up on me
No.
because I've worked and I'm continuing to work on myself to the point that, I am overcoming these things. But if given the option, if given the opportunity, if given that outlet, I'm going to choose to be alone and be at home and be on my own. Even though sometimes that's not healthy for me. But I have a lot of social anxiety that stems from my childhood. And here's why. I was raised by two parents that weren't married. So I always had to divide my time between one family and the other. So it was always a choice. Do I go here or do I go there? What do I do? How do I do this? It's holiday. Which family do I spend time with? Is it my dad's side of the family? Is it my mom's side of the family? Which one am I feeling more comfortable with this year? Which one can I be myself with? Which one do I have to put on airs with? And it got to the point where it was like, okay, I don't want to deal with
I'm
any
gonna
of
do
that.
this anymore.
Yeah, I just want to, I'll do my own
And since
thing.
COVID, it's probably heightened tenfold.
Yeah.
And what I used to find is, like, me and all my friends, we'd all make a plan and we get to the day and half of us just don't want to do it.
Don't want to do it. Yeah.
But what I did find is if I forced myself to, I'd have a
You
really
have
good time.
the ball. You have a ball. You have the time of your
So
life. Yeah.
it's one of those things where we conjure up so much in our heads that we're like, oh my God, I don't want to go. But shall I tell you why? What are we going to wear? What's our hair going to look like? What do we tell people? What's this? What's that? And that's what all comes before actually getting there.
And I'm going to say this. Sometimes we avoid situations because we don't want people to ask us about our own lives.
Exactly.
Like when it comes to being in a community, what you find is that your community cares. And even though you may deem it as being nosy, they're asking you what's going on with you. Why haven't we seen you? Where have you been? This, that, and the third. So you avoid those things and you decide you're not going to go because you don't want to answer those questions.
We had a conversation and I said to my friend, what happens with us as well is if somebody says, oh, have you spoken to Tina? I'll be like, yeah. But it dawned on me, I might not have seen Tina for 4 years.
Yeah.
But because I've texted her and she's texted me, that means nothing. I don't know if she's having a breakdown
somewhere or not. You just know what she told you. All right, Lauren, give me a minute. We're going to take a moment for a commercial break really quickly, and then we're going to come back and finish our conversation.
Perfect.
Dear Black woman, this is my gift to you. Life throws many challenges our way, but within these pages, you'll find love, strength, and empowerment. These letters are written to uplift your spirit, celebrate your resilience, and remind you of your worth. Every letter speaks to your soul, offering encouragement, support, and a reminder that you are never alone in this journey. These words are crafted to inspire you to embrace your path, Find joy in your growth and shine brightly in your truth. Dear Black woman, this is for you. Read it, feel it, live it. Love, Cami Red. Now that we're back, you guys, if you'd like to advertise your business or brand on our podcast, please hit us up on dearblackwoman.me and send us a little message, and we will get in contact with you so that we can play your commercial, your video, or add your information to our intro and outro version of our show. Now, back to what we were saying, Lauren, about community and just how, like, you may not see a person, but technology has made it so easy for you to believe that you're in contact with that person, and we don't necessarily deal with the fact that we haven't seen those people, talk to those people,
No,
put
but
our
we've
hands
trained our brain.
Yeah,
We've trained our brain to trick us to think that we know how that person is, because maybe we've seen them post on social media, maybe we've hit them up quickly on a text or a WhatsApp or whatever it is, just to say hi. But really, you never really know until you actually see the whites of people's eyes.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because even when me and you, or you, Nicole, anybody on these kind of platforms, we put on our best, and then we might shut off and we don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with your, it's when people used to say you don't.
That's not necessarily true.
Okay, Cami.
Because, ma'am, we talk extensively.
We talk when we don't need to be talking.
Yes.
That's the
I
truth.
was going to say, now, you remember the other day I had you set up in the bathroom with me.
Oh, Cami.
Watch this. We have built a comfortable community.
Okay? Too comfortable. Like, it is like, hey, I said to you the other day, I feel like you're down the road. Like, I feel like you're just literally across the street from me, and I've known you for like 25 years. Like, literally, that was so funny the other day. But no, I do feel like we need to start breaking some of these things down and actually start switching on, because we're not switched on to what's going on. And people are really creating these mental barriers behind the screen, behind closed doors. And that's why I continue to be in the community, because I think it helps me as well as helping them.
It does.
By hearing their stories, it helps me feel good. And I think the moment you start withdrawing, there's loads of times I don't want to go out, and especially in the UK, it's cold, it's miserable, it's wet, it's just not nice. But I think it's really important. It really is important, because it can be the difference between you picking up on something that's really important going on in someone's life to when you don't. And I've noticed that. I've met people before and just asked the question, are you all right?
Yep.
And that in itself was enough to just bring
out whatever
of stuff. If we're on here and you say, are you all right? I might say, yeah, I'm fine. And then that's it.
Yeah. And
it's
then
enough.
That's enough. But it's not enough. And that's what we mean by, building community. We hear people, but remember, we talked about the other day, a few episodes back, when we talked about mental wellness, and you said we never see, and you can tell I listen to our podcast often because I can literally quote you all, but you said we never see the middle part of a Black woman breakdown. We see the beginning and we see the end, and we see it's when it's good and when it goes super bad, but we never see anything in between. Well, here's the thing, like what you just said, are we looking for anything in between? Or are we just looking to hear her say, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm this, I'm that, and we're seeing the mask that she's wearing, and we're okay with this mask, even though deep down inside, and I don't know about you, but for me, when people say I'm okay, my next follow-up question is, why just okay? Because deep down inside, I can feel like, okay, I'm choosing to make this an ongoing conversation. If I want to delve deep into what's really going on with her, do I really want to know? Do I care enough to know? Or am I just asking to be superficially nice?
I think to me, it doesn't matter, because you can ask 5 women who have got masks on and every single one of them can say the same thing. But I think it might just be one that ends up letting you know she isn't, or you recognize things in her or him that what I'm saying, because we don't have that personal interaction with people anymore.
Yeah.
It's sometimes about body language. It's not even about the words. It could be the body language. It could be the facial expressions. It could be, the temperament. It could be so many other things other than just the words. So I think what we need to learn to do is have more interaction with people, because that and not the screen is the barrier. The screen, it allows us to be whatever we want it to people to be, see us as.
Yeah, it is. That's why when we talked about relationships and I talked about social media being a falsehood, it's fooling us into believing people lead these immensely happy and fruitful and abundantly well lives, and then you get on the flip side of their camera and they homeless and sleeping on the couch and doing this, that, and the third. So no. But what I have found in hosting like these virtual trauma-based things that we've been doing is that there are people who are ashamed of what they've gone through. So they don't want to share it. But the minute they hear someone else tell their story, especially in a community-based type of situation, they'll go ahead and say, you know what? I wasn't going to say this, but I understand and I feel the same way too. And this has happened to me. And then you start to look and you're saying like, well, for the past 3 weeks, I've been asking you what's going on with you. And for the past 3 weeks, you've been telling me. Yeah.
It's that right connection. This is what I say. We run a domestic violence course, and the women that signed up to the domestic violence course all was like, yeah, I really want to do this course because I really want to be able to help people. Okay. You find that the people that they want to help
is themselves.
But then no one's going to go in and say, I'm a victim of domestic violence. Nobody. But what the tutor found is they started, oh, okay. Oh, you, this is what brought them together. Mm-hmm. So in the first instance, no one come in saying, I was a victim, I'd really like to understand it. No, there was none of that, because we have to put a charade on. We have to put this mask on. And so it's really important that that's why I said sometimes we have to be quite clever in what we do to get people out of their comfort.
Yes.
And whether you say, hi, look, there's a lovely sweet, a cake, come and eat the cake. The cake actually is the truth cake.
Yes.
But we haven't told them you're going to eat the truth cake. So that's why it's really important we continue to do this.
That goes back to what you were saying about your man cave project. How when you guys first initially started, you were telling men that we're going to do this for mental wellness. We're going to do this for emotional wellness. And they weren't interested. They weren't even signing up, and they had no desire to sign up. They weren't interested in any of that. But the minute you changed the perspective and said, well, we're going to do poker night and we're going to serve refreshments, and you never mentioned anything about the topic of conversation that was going to take place, their mindset said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go play poker, not realizing that poker was just there to entice me to come along.
The conversations happen once you're there.
Yep.
Because what we done quite strategically is, while the poker's playing, the guys who were running the actual project
program,
would plant
little seeds of conversation. So they probably ask something like, they'd hit it, lay out a card and say, so has anyone ever experienced anything like this before, and tell a personal story where they're talking about a relationship with their wives or relationship with a significant other. And then next thing you know, you got every man at the table discussing their opinion on it. Yeah. And going back and forth. Yeah.
And it's important. And we also said that I don't know if it's probably happened. One thing that we used to have a lot of in the UK, our grandparents very much so, is they had domino night and things like, so the men would have their little domino night. It was their night, it was their night. They would go to the social club and that was their thing. And I think that was their outlet. But they don't have it anymore. Men don't get together like that anymore. They don't. Unless maybe they might, I'd say, go to like a bar or something. But then even that, it doesn't really happen like that anymore.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest with you, having situations where you mix alcohol with different conversations, then honesty is not really taking
It's
place.
not real.
Yeah,
it goes from being that to just going left. So I think there were certain things that used to happen here when you're looking at the older community. They'd go and they'd play dominoes. So, granddad on a Friday night, he comes in, he has his dinner, whatever, and he goes, I'm going down to the domino club. That's me, yeah? And he'd be down there for hours. Mm-hmm. But when they're down there, it's their way of being able to
talk with other men, to have communication with other men, to be in Congress with other men. And let me tell you something. Okay, so my homeboy sent me an ad last night that was on, and you'll see when I get to the end of this story why I brought this up. That was on Instagram, and it was talking about men spooning and all of this stuff and how men want to be held and this, that, and the third. But the way they did it, it created a stigma amongst men. So it almost challenged their masculinity and their manhood and things like that. And what we have to get away from is when men want to be emotional, when men want to be vulnerable, when men want to be held, that's okay. And society and social media are the ones feeding toxic masculinity into these situations. Like, I didn't think about it until he sent it to me, and he was like, "Oh, don't ever spoon me like that." And I was like, "Wait a minute, let's back up for a minute," because
they love it. They love it. They love all that.
I was like, too late. We already did that. So, like, come on. You talking about don't do it because you seeing this video and it's making it look like it's
but that's what I'm saying to you. It can flip on its head in something. Listen, there are women who need comfort, and there's men that need comfort.
I don't think it's any problem for a man to want to be hugged, to want to be held as his woman, as his counterpart, or whatever I am in his life. Even as a sister, I will give you a hug because if you need it, you just need it.
Because it's the same with us. Listen, I raised my son. I'm hugging him all the. We got to remember, we're mums. We hug our boys. We give them kisses. Then it's like they get to a certain age, and they're not expected to want to have this emotion anymore.
My son is 25. If I go in for a hug, he like, "Mom, stop, Mom."
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But you got to remember, we have done this for a long time in their life. Then all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, you shouldn't expect it anymore. But women can expect it.
Yeah, that's not fair to them. That's not fair to them. And that's really what we've been talking about, to be completely honest, is what role do we play in these communities? How can we not only heal ourselves as women and heal little girls that's coming up, but also heal our boys, heal our men, help in the role of healing our community, period. Because like I said, this is 7 generations in the making that we're dealing with right now. This isn't something that just came about. This comes from your great grandmother telling your uncle, little boys don't cry, get up, fix your face. That's not what you're supposed to do. How many of us, and when I say us, I'm talking to women in general, how many of us have said that to boys? Everybody may not be guilty of
Easy.
it, but just think
Easy.
about, like, how many times has that literally popped into your head, just unconsciously speaking?
It
Yeah,
happens. And what I'm saying is like my son plays soccer, football, and you see parents, especially the dads, if the boys get knocked over or hit or get up, get up. You see it. Like, and the boys are crying. They're little boys. They're like 6 and 7 years old, crying because they've been smacked in the mouth or punched or kicked or whatever it is. And you're seeing the dads get up, get up. And you're like, what are we doing to our kids?
yeah, we're creating little robots, and then wondering why when they get to a certain age,
And they're
they have,
desensitized to
yeah, they have no emotional intelligence. They have no, they have no empathy towards other people. They like that's our fault.
we
And
keep blaming it on things like video games.
but it's
And
not, it's us. And the crazy part is we recognize it in our own lives, but don't recognize what we're doing to our kids.
yes,
So again, in the role of community, we literally have to start being responsible, not only for our own healing, but for the trauma and the things that we inflict on our children as well. Because
yes.
again, it's 7 generations in the making. That means that your grandfathers, your great grandfathers, your great great grandfathers, your great 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 grandfathers, your great 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 grandfathers, your great 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 grandfathers' trauma is on your back right now. And
But
are
like
you
I
going
said, we
to
have now the resource
Mhm.
and the understanding and the education to now do something about it.
Yeah.
The problem we've got is the distraction.
I was just getting ready to say, it's the distraction, it's the force to pull apart as opposed to build together. Everything in this world says you should be isolated, you should be by yourself, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't go out into the community, you shouldn't do this. When everything in us, including human energy, says that we should. Humans were not built to be alone. And that I
It's
said
the
that last
first
week.
time I
Yeah.
feel like we have the chance because we've got all the pieces.
Yeah.
We've got data from history. We've got lessons learned from history. We can go on now and look through the technology and pull up history. We can research things, and we have the access then to communicate. But the one thing we've got all of that, which our ancestors probably didn't have, and the one thing that we haven't got that they had was togetherness.
Yeah. That is where we're
Social
lacking. We have come to that point where we no longer have the need, the desire. And the crazy part is it's such a blame game though, because now when you say, oh, I don't want to go to this family function because of this auntie and what this auntie did to me when I was little. But if you're working on healing, forgiveness should be a part of healing. And not saying that you're forgiving for their sake, but you're forgiving for your sake so that it no longer holds you back and you move forward.
But
But
it's
that
not
doesn't
even about the
mean,
auntie. It's about where you've put
yes.
yourself mentally.
Yeah, so they say stuff like, oh, my grandparents inflicted trauma on me. Well, guess what? So did mine. And so did my parents. And so did my aunts and my uncles, my cousins, all of that. And my reasoning for not wanting to go to family functions has absolutely nothing to do with that, because I will show up when I will show up. But I have social anxiety. So that's a little bit hard for me. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the trauma I faced. I was a shy little girl. My grandmother tells stories about how when I was a little girl, I never talked. I didn't talk then, but I definitely run my mouth all day now.
No.
You know what? Don't do that.
Stop playing.
Yeah. But
Honey, we have to force you to talk most days.
I know, right? I'm such a oh my God, it's so hard for me. But no, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those we give ourselves excuses for
Yes.
why we can't be in our
Yes.
community. And
Yes.
society has made those excuses acceptable because they say, "Oh, you know, you don't have to deal with people who do this or who do that." So you tell yourself, "I don't have to deal with people who do this and do that. So I don't want to go to this event and I don't want to be around this person."
If you think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you didn't have this technology consuming your life, your ass would be going, otherwise, you'd be bored as hell.
That
You
part.
would literally be going out of your brain, right? But
Mhm.
because you can jump onto this and open up your world, it feels like it's been replaced. So you're feeling like,
So here's the thing, social media has taken the place of community. And what people have done is they built community online. The problem is you got a bunch of people who never leave their homes, who never go
that's what I'm
anywhere, who,
saying.
who never do anything. And they think because they are in Congress or in contact with other people, other places, that that's their community. But no, community is also the people that surround you, the
Yes.
people that, are
Whether
there for
you like
you.
them, whether you don't like them, whether they're, you have different points of view. It's the actual human
Yeah,
social interaction. That's what we were built for.
that is. That
So,
is. All right, Lauren, this is going to be the end of our podcast. But I want to ask you, what advice would you give to someone seeking to build a community that addresses mental health, uplifts Black women, and supports Black men?
I think I think throughout this whole show we've spoken about not emphasizing mental well-being, mental health. Don't do it. It's a dirty word. It's one of those words where people just run at the moment. I think find common interests, grab somebody, get understand what people are interested in and get them talking through their own interests, their things that they enjoy. And I think that alone builds trust, builds community, builds support, and that's how you kind of you can get familiar with starting to understand if people are struggling. So I think that would be my main thing. And when it comes to supporting our young men and our young women, I think the main thing is to also install in them how important it is for them to continue to have social actual interactions, no matter how they don't want to this week or they've got something else they want to do. It's very important that they come together socially.
Yeah, I'm going to say something very just before we wrap it up. Last night I attended an event and it was called Music versus Poetry, and
Okay.
it's a play on words. So it was hosted by this lady, Miss Anne Marie, and Miss Anne Marie is an English teacher. And what she did was she was like, "We're having a music party, just come." It was virtual. It was a virtual event for women. And she played all kinds of music from all over the world, from the 70s, from the 60s, all kinds of music. But in the midst of doing that, she also gave us exercises to do where
Wow.
we ended up writing affirmations for ourselves.
Wow.
Then in the end, she asked us to drop one of the affirmations. She told us to wait. She told us to type it in the chat box and get it ready. And then she said, when I count to 3, I want everybody to drop the affirmation that they decided to share in the chat box at the same time. So then we all dropped them in there and she read it like it was a poem.
Wow. And that is how you bring people together,
Yeah.
because you've literally taken every bit of someone's story and put it in. And I bet you there was things in other people's
Yeah, because even there was a doctor on the line, and she said, "Oh my God, Miss Anne Marie." She said, because she started out playing all kinds of like music from Donna Summers, then she moved to Prince, and then she moved to New
Wow.
Edition, and she was throwing out trivia in between giving us lessons, so you weren't even.
Wow.
It wasn't even like you were paying attention to what she
What
was
she was
doing.
doing when she was doing it. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so she talked about which one did we like, the new edition. Oh, she said Boys to Men versus New Edition, New Bobby versus Old
Why are
Bobby.
we doing this? Why
Why
are we
we're doing
doing
this?
this?
Yeah. So everybody's got an opinion about that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, I want you to grab a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of the paper. On one side, I want you to write triggers. On the other side, I want you to write glimmers. And I want you to take this line and we're going to reshape our triggers into our glimmers. So you see how she did that? We went from talking about Bobby Brown and his
So now
music
you
to talking about, and let me tell you how she shaped it in. What she said was, perspective is everything. She said, we hated Bobby Brown at one point
yeah,
until we learned the truth
yeah.
behind the story. And when we learned the truth behind the story, we reshaped our perspective on him and started rooting for him versus starting to,
Throwing the stones.
throw stones at him. So she was telling us that in a way, that's what we needed to do with our own lives and with
Yeah,
our own things. And
100%.
so she was telling us to reframe our triggers and say, at one point, I believed in this. And now I'm either grateful for or I thrive off of this. So mine was, at one point, I believed that being ignored was normal. Now I thrive off of words of affirmation.
Right.
And
Perfect.
so I dropped that one into the chat, which is why I don't mind sharing it. And another girl dropped into the chat about how she thought that, at one point being taken advantage of was one way. And so can you imagine Miss Anne-Marie reading all of these together like it was a poem, and her changing words so that it would, because she's an English teacher and
Yes,
poetry is her
to
thing.
make it flow as
Yes.
a one. Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, because and then she at the end she asked, she said, "What kind of other events would you guys like to see me do and host?" And I told her, I said, "This one again."
Yeah, like you just really felt it.
Yeah, I was like, "This
Say,
one
man,
again,"
you
because
must
not only did you took us back to our childhood, you took us through a history of music, but while you did that, you also taught us a very valuable lesson, and you did it all in an hour.
yes. And fun in a fun way.
Yes, in a very fun way. Because can you imagine listening to Donna Summers' Last
Oh
Dance,
man.
and you just you sitting there writing, and next thing you
Using
know,
your
you're just like,
stuff.
what? Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
then
love
she
music.
played Prince. Oh my God. Listen, I'm a huge fan of Prince. I don't care what song you put on a Prince.
Prince is
Yeah, I'm
on a whole
singing.
nother level.
She went back to Purple Rain and she did I Will Die for You. So me being my age, and let me just say this, it was a diverse group of people. It was people from their 60s, people in their 70s, people in their 30s, people in their 20s, people in their 40s, my age group. So
Oh.
I'm sitting up there, I'm like, I will die for you. I was like, yeah, I'm doing the hand movements and everything, Lauren, and not realizing that all of
She's got
this,
her own thing that's going on because you guys are in your own world.
yeah. So just those type of community-based things. It's okay to do virtual events.
Of course.
But what another thing I learned from Miss Anne Marie is that she does this in person. She does poetry slams. So if you guys signed up for the book anthology, you saw where one of the questions was, would you be interested in participating in a poetry slam? The reason why is because that was Miss Anne Marie's idea. She hit me, first of all, us turning the book into a monologue play, and then allowing some of the women to do poetry was all Miss Anne Marie. Okay. So like I said, building a community can be beneficial for us as Black
Yes.
women,
Yes.
as Black people, as women, period. And we have to, what I think we need to do is learn how to stretch these branches out a little bit further. There are
100%.
some men that are doing this, but we need to get a lot more men in our age group into doing these things for boys, and not just like, not just for boys, for other men as well.
Yeah.
So
But I think, like I said, it's we have a duty of care to do this to young boys and girls, and men have the duty of care to do it to young boys and young girls. And
yeah,
if you work together, that's how you build a community, and a strong, healthy community.
at that, very true. All right, you guys, Lauren and I have had we've had a very great conversation, even
Yeah.
though somebody has accused Lauren and I of being conversational bullies. It was only Lauren and me here today, so we didn't have a choice but to talk. Okay. However, next week, Nicole will be back to the show. And what is our topic for next week? Let me pull that up so we can tell everybody. Next week's topic is, today is Lauren's birthday, so everybody tell Lauren happy birthday as well.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So next week is also Thanksgiving here in the United States, but we will still be recording our podcast as we always do. And our topic will be self-care rituals. So if you are someone who specializes in self-care rituals, if you would like to be a part of the
I need to know, please come on, because I need some tips.
If you'd like to be a part of the podcast, go to our website, www.dearblackwoman.me. And if you hit the tab that says podcast, there's a drop down where it says podcast submissions, people who be interested in being on the show. Click that link, fill out that form, and I will contact you so that you can be on the show. We look forward to speaking with you, and we look forward to hearing from you. So if you're out there and you want to, just share with us what you think of some of the things that we've talked about, we would love to hear it as well. So thank you guys for joining us for this empowering episode of Dear Black Woman. As always, we are 3 Black women from 3 different countries and cultures discussing things that affect Black women all over the world. We hope today's conversation reminded you of the importance of community, how it can uplift, support, and connect us in ways that truly transform our lives. Again, a special shout out to Lauren on her birthday. Make sure y'all put it in the comments. Happy birthday, Lauren. Thank you for being
Jamie.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you are just a bright light in this space, so we appreciate you so much. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on your favorite podcast platform. We are, in fact, on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon, Audible, everywhere you can think of. We are there. Just put Dear Black Woman in the search bar. You can even put my name, Cammie Red, and it'll bring it right up. You can put Lauren's name and it'll bring it up as well. And as always, a huge thank you to Rabbit Productions for the intro and outro music that sets the tones for our conversation. Until next time, you guys, remember, community is strength, connection is power, and together we will rise. Again, the website is going across the bottom of the screen. Advertise with us. Come on the show. We would love to have you. Have a great night, great day, great evening, wherever you are in the world. Dear Black Woman is a podcast where we dive into the challenges, current events, and everyday realities Black women face around the world.
We're here to share real stories, offer practical advice, and create a safe space for authentic conversations that empower and inspire.
Join us each week as we connect, uplift, and celebrate the resilience and strength of Black women everywhere. Listen to Dear Black Woman on your favorite podcast platform.